The morning he buried her, the sun refused to rise proper. It hung low and red behind a stretch of bone-colored hills, like a wound the earth hadn't healed. Koi Ransom stood at the edge of the pit with dirt caked in the creases of his knuckles. His hands, so used to swinging a saddle or cradling a rifle, trembled like a drunkard's. Anna was under 6 feet of dust. Koi had dug the grave himself with an old spade and a pickaxe whose handle cracked with every strike. He didn't want the preacher, didn't want the town women with their cold biscuits and lukewarm comfort. He wanted silence, the kind you get only after a scream. She was 29. She survived the cholera, the cattle raid, the dry year, but not the child. Koi had named their son Elijah, but the boy never drew a breath. Anna bled out with her lips parted like she meant to say something and couldn't. By midday, Koi burned the cabin down. It was Anna's wish, written in that tight, slanted script on the back of an old almanac page. Burn it all. Let no one sleep in what I died inside. The fire took hold quick, greedy. Flames licked through the walls, then the rafters, then the porch where they used to drink coffee and watch for coyotes. He stood back with his hat off, eyes dry. That place had been their hope, the last acre of a life they built from scratch. He left the smoldering heap behind with his horse, a silver-bellied gelding named Fencepost. There was no plan, no kin left, no reason to go north or south, so he went west. A man with a broken heart and no map walks toward the place where the sun dies, figuring it might take him with it. 3 weeks later, Koi rode into Hollow Bend, a town tucked low along the Snakewater Creek. Dusty, lean, and crooked as a poker player's smile. He hadn't spoken more than a dozen words since the funeral. He drank when he had coin, slept in a dry bed when he could trade labor for it. The rest of the time, he drifted like wind-blown ash. In Hollow Bend, something held him, not comfort, not welcome, but something quieter. The town had a worn-out feel, like it had lost more than it remembered. A few boarded-up stores, a jail with no sheriff, a church with a preacher too fond of whiskey. He stayed at the livery, sleeping in the hayloft when the nights turned sharp. It was the 4th day when the bride arrived. She came with no escort, no luggage, no name, just a blue calico dress and a blank stare. Her hair was plaited tight against her scalp, dark as creek mud. Her eyes were the kind that watched everything but gave nothing back. The stage driver said she was meant for someone, a fella by the name of Harris or Harlan, he couldn't remember which, and that she'd come all the way from Nebraska territory. No one came to claim her. She stood beside her trunk on the edge of the dusty street like something misplaced, a package dropped on the wrong porch. The saloon girls whispered. The blacksmith's wife crossed herself. The preacher never came down from the hill. Koi watched from the bench outside the store, a jar of molasses between his boots. He hadn't shaved in a week. His coat was threadbare and his hat held more sweat than shade. But when her eyes flicked up and met his, something caught in his chest. She wasn't beautiful, not in the way Anna had been. But she was there, like she hadn't decided yet if she belonged to this world or the next. And something in Koi, hollow and howling, recognized that. He didn't rise, just tipped his hat. She didn't smile, didn't frown. Just walked over slow, like her boots weighed more than they should. "Your man didn't come," he said. His voice sounded strange in his own ears, like a fiddle out of tune. She looked past him. "No." "Got a name." "I do." He waited, she didn't offer it. Koi squinted against the sun. "Don't reckon I've got much to offer. No land, no house, not even a full dollar in my pocket, but I know what it is to be left behind." "I wasn't left," she said. "I was sent." He looked at her again, harder. She didn't blink, didn't flinch. Koi didn't know whether to pity her or follow her straight into whatever sorrow she carried, but the part of him that had died with Anna stirred like ash-catching wind. "Name's Koi Ransom," he said, standing. "I buried my wife 3 weeks past, burned the house, sold the cattle, got no kin, no plan, but I'm not mean. I don't drink more than the sadness calls for, and I don't raise a hand to what don't raise one to me." She studied him like she was weighing out beans. "You askin'." "I'm saying." She nodded once. They married before nightfall. The preacher sobered up long enough to mutter through the vows. No music, no rings, just Koi's hand wrapped around hers and the dusk pressing in like judgment. Her name, she told him at the altar, was Mara. She didn't say if it was her Christian name or one she picked for herself. After they ate cold biscuits and tinned peaches in the livery, sitting cross-legged in the straw, fence posts shifted in the stall. Koi unrolled a blanket, spread it out. Mara lay down beside him without a word. He didn't touch her. Didn't ask where she'd come from or what name she'd had before the one she gave. He lay awake most of the night, watching shadows crawl along the roof beams and listening to her breathe. In the hours before dawn, she turned to him. "I can't give you children," she said. Koi closed his eyes. "Then we won't plant none." A long silence settled between them. She whispered, "You should have picked someone easier." "I didn't pick," he said. "I answered." And for the first time in weeks, he slept. Mara never cried. Not when they wed, not the nights after, not when the rains came and soaked through the livery roof, turning straw to mildew. Koi watched for it, some crack, some grief rising to the surface, but she held herself tighter than bark to a dead tree. She kept her silence close, woke before dawn, washed at the pump out back with a rag and cold water, spoke only when needed. Koi didn't press. A man who has buried a wife knows better than to dig at ghosts still walking. By the end of the first week, she had cleaned the corner of the loft where they slept, swept it with a borrowed broom, laid out a patchwork quilt she'd pulled from her trunk. She stitched a tear in Koi's coat without being asked, her needle fast and quiet. She cooked what little they had, beans mostly, or salt pork and cornbread scraps. Her hands never lingered, her eyes never wandered. In town, they were a curiosity. "Girls touched," said Mrs. Grieving, owner of the dry goods. "Could be a whore," whispered the barkeep to the deputy, "run from something." "Looks like she killed a man and forgot to bury him," laughed one of the drovers. Koi heard it all. He didn't answer. Didn't know hollow bend a damn thing. He'd ridden farther from worse. Then came the knife. It happened on a Thursday, just past sundown. Koi was out back splitting logs behind the cooper's shop for a few coins and supper, his shoulders slick with sweat. When he came back to the loft, he found the trapdoor open and one of the stock boys bleeding from the ear, crawling down the ladder like a busted dog. Mara stood above him, her skirt torn at the hem, a paring knife in her hand. The blade glinted wet. Koi didn't ask, he didn't need to. He dragged the boy by the collar, dumped him into the street in front of the store, and told the crowd that gathered, "He won't be walking upright for a spell. You want more details, I'll carve him into your ribcage." No one spoke after that. Back in the loft, Mara sat with her hands in her lap. The knife rested beside her, wiped clean on a rag. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded. "Did I touch you?" She shook her head, tried, didn't get far. Koi squatted in front of her, took her wrist gently. Her pulse thumped fast and hard. He said nothing else, just sat with her as the night deepened. Fence post nickered below. Mara finally spoke. "He thought I was bought." Koi looked at her. "You ain't." "I know." He watched her face shift, some shudder lifting for half a breath, not trust, but something near it. She stared at the floorboards as though reading a past that wouldn't let itself be forgotten. "I was promised to a man named Krail," she said. "He sent coin for the journey, not the girl, told my kin I was going west to marry, didn't say what kind of man he was." Koi waited. "Found out in Ogallala. Woman there told me he beat his first wife to death in a shed. They never buried her proper, just put lime down and moved the pigs over her." Koi's hands clenched slowly, jaw tightening. "I got off the stage before the last stop," she said. "Changed the ticket name, burned the letter, got on a second coach to Hollow Bend. I was never meant for here. But you came. She looked at him, and in her eyes he saw something raw, not weakness, a wound with teeth. I'd rather be no one's bride, she said, than his widow. Koi stood and crossed the loft. He reached into the saddlebag by his bedroll, pulled out a tin badge wrapped in oilcloth. He tossed it on the floor beside her. It clinked. What's that? Was sheriff once, he said. Back in New Sandra, before the cattle wars, before Anna. You left it behind. I laid it down. Why? He met her gaze, because justice got heavy, and revenge got too easy. Mara looked down at the badge. Her fingers hovered over it. I won't be her again, she whispered, the girl waiting on a man to come save her. Koi sat beside her. Then don't. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it breathed. That night they moved from the loft to a shack near the edge of town, a long-abandoned surveyor's post with a rotted roof and no door. Koi patched it up while Mara scavenged tin and canvas from the trading post's dump. They made a home with less than nothing, and that nothing held. Weeks passed. They didn't speak much, but their silence changed shape, became a kind of shelter. Mara began to walk into town without fear, chin high, eyes ahead. The drovers stopped staring. The stockboy left town. Mrs. Grieving started handing her cloth remnants for free. Then came the smoke. Koi woke one night to the scent, sharp, acrid, wrong. He grabbed his rifle. Mara was already up, hair loose, eyes wild. The shack across from theirs, a squat miner's lean-to, was burning. Flames reached the trees. Koi ran toward it, gun in hand. The town gathered as the flames rose. The fire spread faster than it should have. Someone had soaked the walls in lamp oil. Inside the smoke, they found two bodies. One was the preacher, throat slit, mouth stuffed with pages from his own Bible. The other, a woman no one recognized, burned too far to name, but something about the wrist bones, small, delicate. Mara stared longer than anyone. When they finally walked back to their shack, Koi saw her jaw set like stone. She was meant for Krail too, she said. He said nothing, just loaded his rifle again, slow and steady. In the morning, the stage rolled in from the east. A single passenger disembarked. Tall man, black coat, pale hat, scarred down one cheek. He stepped onto the dusty street, looked around, and said to no one in particular, I'm looking for my bride. Mara stood on the porch behind Koi, her hands at her sides. Koi turned to her. This the man. She nodded once. Koi stepped off the porch, rifle slung low, heart steady as a judge's gavel. You found the wrong town, mister, he said. Krail smiled, all teeth, no warmth. I'll know her when I see her. Koi didn't smile back. She's not for sale. Krail's eyes shifted, slow, to Mara, then to the badge in Koi's belt. Then he stepped backward, just once, just enough. I'll be staying at the saloon, Krail said. You've got till sundown. He turned and walked away like a man who'd already claimed what he came for. Mara exhaled, Koi didn't. You're gonna kill him, she said. No, Koi answered, watching the dust settle behind Krail's boots. We are. Krail didn't drink. He sat in the saloon from noon to near dusk and never touched the whiskey glass left sweating in front of him, just stared through the mirror behind the bar, watching the room without turning. His hands stayed folded, but his eyes never did. Pale gray, flat as sheet metal. A man like that didn't flinch when trouble walked in. He brought it with him, wrapped in black wool and the stench of violence long past. Mara didn't hide. She washed her face, braided her hair, and went to the pump to scrub Koi's shirt like it mattered. Then she swept the shack, laid a small knife beneath the mattress and sat by the window with the sun behind her, waiting, not cowering. Koi watched her like a man measuring weather. He knew storms when he saw them, and Mara was one, coiled tight. They didn't talk about plans, not like most folks would. There was no argument, no strategy drawn in the dirt with a stick, just understanding. The kind forged from loss and lit by fire. By mid-afternoon, the town felt split. Half of Hollow Bend circled the saloon like buzzards, drawn to the scent of something bloody to come. The other half stayed behind shutters, watching shadows grow long. There was no law anymore. No sheriff but the man who'd stopped wearing a badge and the woman who never needed one. Crail came out at sunset. He walked slow, like he wanted everyone to see, a dueling pistol in a shoulder holster, a second at his hip. He moved like a man who thought no one had ever been faster. He stopped in front of Koi and Mara's shack, boots crunching the gravel. "You made your choice," he called. Koi stepped out, rifle slung across his back, hands empty. "We made it for you," he said. Crail laughed once, sharp and ugly. "I paid for her," he said. "She's mine." Mara stepped out behind Koi, coat buttoned, hands gloved. "I'm not," she said. Crail's hand twitched. Koi saw it. But it was Mara who moved first. The knife she'd tucked in her glove was in the air before Crail's pistol cleared leather. She threw underhand, fast and low. It sliced his thigh, not deep, but enough to stagger him. Koi advanced 3 paces, drew the rifle and shouted. "Don't!" Crail froze, gun half raised, teeth bared. "Drop it." "You wouldn't," Crail hissed. "You're a lawman, or was." "I buried law with my wife," Koi said. "What you get is justice." He fired. Not to kill, not yet. The bullet clipped Crail's shoulder, spinning him sideways. He hit the dirt, rolled, and came up bloody. Mara was already there. She kicked the pistol from his hand, planted her boot on his chest, and leaned down slow. "I know what you are," she said, "and I know what you've done." "I gave you coin," he gasped. "You gave it to my brother," she said. "He used it for whiskey, said I was too wild to keep anyhow." Her voice was steady, cold as river stone. "I was 15 when you picked me. I'm 20 now, I'm not yours." Crail looked up at her. "Then what are you?" She glanced back at Koi, who stood with the rifle low, watching. Then she looked back down. "I'm the woman who buries the past," she said, "and you're 6 feet of it." She pulled the second knife from her coat. Koi didn't move, neither did the crowd that had formed behind the wagons and porch railings. Everyone breathing felt the shift, like the town itself had finally stopped trembling. Mara didn't kill him there. She walked away. Left him bleeding in the dust, both guns taken, pride gutted. Koi picked up the pistols and tossed them into the well near the Coopers. They hit the water with a flat splash. By nightfall, Crail had crawled to the edge of town. A wagon took him east the next morning, shoulder wrapped, thigh stitched. No one asked where he'd go. No one cared. After that, Hollow Bend changed. Not loud, not fast, but deep, like water carving rock. Mara opened a room behind the trading post where she stitched things, clothes, wounds, broken pride. Women came first, then children, then men with apologies behind their teeth. She spoke little, smiled even less, but people began to nod when she passed. Koi started carrying the rifle again. He never put the badge back on, but he wore a look that made folks remember it. They planted a small garden behind the shack, turnips, beans, and carrots. Mara found comfort in rose and soil. Koi found it in her silence. They didn't speak of the day Crail came. They didn't need to. One night, a woman came to the door, dark-skinned, limping, with a scar that split her lip. She didn't give her name, just looked at Mara with wide eyes and said, "I heard you don't send women back." Mara opened the door. Koi watched from the porch, and the quiet between them grew into something new. Not love, not yet, but something shaped like it. Spring dragged its heels through Hollow Bend that year. Frost lingered in the creek beds long past planting time, and a blight took half the potato starts Mara had laid by hand. Koi strung wire fence between weathered posts while the wind gnawed his knuckles raw. The town breathed slow, its bones creaking beneath every sunrise. Mara changed, though not in ways a stranger would see. She walked different, slower, heavier at the heel, as if she'd stopped waiting to be chased. Her hair was longer, often braided over one shoulder with a strip of rawhide tied at the end. She still kept a knife near always, tucked inside her boot or wrapped in cloth near her work basket. But now, when she held it, it was habit, not fear. She spoke more, though sparingly. Koi learned to wait through the silences, learned that the shape of a thing wasn't always in its telling, but in the way a voice broke around it. The woman who'd come to the door, the one with the scar, stayed. Her name was Clemma. She didn't say where she'd come from, only that she had crossed 3 rivers and changed her name twice. Mara made space for her in the shack without a word. Koi built a second room using leftover boards and rust-bitten nails. At night, the women talked in low voices by lantern light, sewing or listening to the wind. Koi sat on the porch, oiling his rifle, watching shadows gather and scatter like birds startled off a field. Peace wasn't a thing he trusted, but it had a feel to it, like the hush before a thunderclap. Beautiful, yes, but borrowed. It didn't last. One morning, the preacher's burned-out church began to whisper. A boy found a shoe near the old altar, half buried in ash. A woman claimed she saw candlelight flicker through the windows after dark. Koi went to look. Nothing there but char, rats, and a pile of rotted hymnals. Still, the air inside was wrong. Thick, sour, as if someone had bled into the wood. Then the girl vanished. Her name was Ruthie March, 11 years old. Last seen feeding chickens behind the Greavy's store, gone before supper. No scream, no trail, just a single feather caught in the chicken wire and a line of boot prints leading east. Koi followed them into the scrub beyond town. Mara followed him. They found the girl 2 miles out, tied to a fence post by her wrists, bruised but alive, mouth stuffed with a rag, her eyes. Koi would never forget that look. Not of pain, but of knowing, like she'd seen something meant for adults and beasts and now couldn't fit back into her own skin. Ruthie couldn't speak for a day. When she did, she said the man had asked if she knew Mara. "Did he say a name?" Koi asked. The girl nodded. He said Redding sends regards. Koi felt something go still inside Mara then. Not fear, not anger, something colder. She rose, walked to the well, dropped her knife in, then came back and packed a satchel. "Who's Redding?" Koi asked. "The man Krail answered to," she said. Koi took his rifle down from the hooks above the door. "You think he'll come himself?" Mara looked up. "He'll send worse." The town stirred uneasily. Koi went door to door that night, speaking soft to those who'd listen. Some locked up and stayed behind curtains. A few packed wagons and left, but most stayed, too stubborn or too poor to run. They remembered how Krail bled in the street, remembered who'd made that happen. 2 nights later, smoke rose again. But this time it wasn't a building, it was a signal fire, out past the ridge. A warning or a promise, Koi couldn't tell. All he knew was that Hollow Bend had become a mark. Mara's past hadn't died in the dirt, it had multiplied. At dawn, 5 riders came. Koi spotted them first from the edge of the bluff, rode back to the shack, said one word, "company," and Mara was already tying her boots. The riders didn't wear uniforms, but they moved like soldiers. Precision in the way they fanned out. 4 men, 1 woman, all armed, dust-coated, faces covered with kerchiefs. Their horses were too well fed for wanderers. They stopped in front of the trading post. The woman dismounted, pulled back her scarf, scarred mouth, hard eyes, spoke with a voice like sand over steel. "We want the girl," she said. Koi stepped forward. "Ain't no girls here, only women, you'll get neither. You harboring a fugitive." Koi didn't answer, just glanced toward Mara. Mara stepped out, calm, shoulders square. "You came from Reading," she said. "We came for what's his." Koi tilted his rifle. "She ain't property. She broke contract. Then let him come and claim it." The woman spat. "He doesn't come for scraps, we clean for him." What followed wasn't a standoff, it was a reckoning. Koi didn't shoot first, but he shot second. The first bullet took the trader's sign clean off the post. The second caught one of the riders in the gut. The saloon barkeep fired from a window. Clemma stabbed one of the bastards who made it past the steps. Mara didn't kill with rage. She killed like she was ending something that had needed killing for years. When it was done, 3 of them lay dead in the street. One ran. One crawled into the ditch and bled out before sundown. Mara wiped her hands with a square of linen, eyes steady. Koi stood beside her, rifle smoke curling up like incense. From behind them, the townsfolk gathered. Mrs. Grieving, the preacher's widow, the old man with one leg, none of them had words. Then the saloon barkeep spoke. "Think they'll send more?" Mara nodded, yes. Koi said, "Then we'll dig trenches next time." That night Hollow Bend chose, not with a vote, with shovels and nails and silence. Koi dug posts. Mara stitched bandages. Clemma loaded shells. And the town that had once been a hollow place began to fill with something fierce. By summer, Hollow Bend was no longer quiet. The blacksmith had rigged tripwires along the East Trail. A widow named Hester, blind in one eye, posted herself on the roof of the feed store with a double barrel and a field glass. Koi had taught 2 boys to shoot and 3 more how to reload under fire. The bell from the ruined church was hauled down and rehung from a frame of timber beams and ox chain. It would not ring for worship. It would ring for war. Mara worked like a woman paying off old debt. She dug trenches until her fingers blistered, cooked when no one else could, stitched wounds, and taught Clemma how to gut a man in silence. When she wasn't working, she stood at the edge of the bluff, coat whipping in the wind, watching the trail, always waiting. Koi wanted to ask her what Reading had done, but some truths earned silence, not speech. He knew the shape of cruelty, knew how it lingered in the bones long after the bruises faded, and Mara, she carried things he would never name aloud. Still, he watched her shoulders at dawn, the way they drew breath, the way her hands never trembled, and something unspoken passed between them, stronger than promises. When the riders came again, they didn't wear dust. They came in black. 7 of them, each with the same iron pin on their coat, a red eye, forged and fire-burnished. Mara went pale when she saw it. "Red Watch," she said. "Reading's private hounds, killers, not collectors." Koi nodded once. "Then they'll die like men." They came at dusk when the light bent low and golden across the sage. First came the whistle, high and distant, like a train that never stopped. Then hoofbeats, measured, no panic in them, just certainty. Koi rang the church bell once. The town took position. They didn't wait this time. There were no warnings, no negotiations, just gunfire. The first shot tore through the Grievy's sign. The second shattered the cooper's window. Koi fired from the back of the feed store, dropped a rider clean off his horse. Mara and Clemma moved through the alleys, blades drawn. The town fought not like settlers but like survivors who'd run out of places to run. Mara didn't aim for limbs. She went for throats, arteries, soft places between ribs. She moved without hesitation, a blade in each hand, silent as death. Koi took a bullet through the shoulder but stayed upright. Killed 2 more before the bleeding made his vision blur. The last man standing was the one who didn't fire. He walked slowly, dressed finer than the others, a long coat brushing the tops of his boots. Gray hair tied back, gloves black as soot. He stopped in the square. "Redding." Mara stepped forward. Her boots dragged blood across the dust. "Didn't think you'd come," she said. "I come when something needs ending," Redding replied. "You ended me years ago." He smiled, "Then what are you now?" She pulled the knife from her boot. "Justice," she said, "without a badge, without a god." She charged. Koi shouted, tried to rise, but the blood held him down. Redding moved fast, pulled a thin dueling pistol from his coat, fired once. It missed. Mara was faster. She ducked the shot, rolled, came up behind him, drove the knife through his back, between the shoulder blades, deep enough to kiss the spine. He turned, staggered, mouth full of blood. "You're just a girl," he rasped. "I was," she said. Then she slit his throat. The sound that followed was not cheering, not relief, it was silence. Not hollow. Full of everything they'd lost and everything they'd fought to keep. Koi found her after, kneeling, breathing hard, her hands shaking finally, the blade slick in her palm. He knelt beside her, touched her shoulder. "You done?" he asked. She nodded once. That night they buried the bodies in the canyon behind the ridge. No crosses, no prayers, just stones piled high enough to keep the coyotes out. Koi lit a torch and set the last of Redding's coat to flame. Mara watched until nothing was left but smoke. They didn't go back to the shack. They didn't go anywhere. They stood in the dark with the wind in their coats and the world behind them and something new in the space where vengeance used to live. "Will it come again?" Koi asked. Mara didn't answer for a long while. "Then, if it does, it'll find me ready." He turned to her. "You're not the girl they sent," he said. "You're the one who came back." She looked at him. "I know." They held hands, not out of affection, but recognition. 2 revenants. 2 graves they'd climbed out of. And though love was still far off, maybe not their kind at all, they'd built something stronger between them. A reckoning. A home. Not for the weak, not for the pure, but for the ones who survived what should have ended them. The ones who married before nightfall, not for romance, but for rebirth. And made something righteous out of ruin.